Spoilers. I think the big disclaimer today is that neither Brian nor I have ever been very much into the 80s He-Man and She-Ra. We've definitely seen a decent amount, but what we've always seen the most of has been the 2018 S-Pop.
Spop.
Spop?
When you say, like, seen the most of, do you mean just, like, binge rewatch back to back for several months? Do you want to know what my actual first exposure to the He-Man universe, or I don't know what you'd want to call it? The
Masters of the Universe.
The Masters of the Universe. The HMCU, the He-Man Cinematic Universe, was Robot Chicken Skeletor.
Yes.
Because, like, that was, you figure, early thousands at least, if not a little before.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've seen the 80s shows a decent amount.
Yep.
We've seen the 80s movie Masters of the Universe with Courtney Cox.
Yep.
Phenomenal. We haven't seen the 2000s one. No one really talks about it, including us.
I definitely haven't seen anything said good or bad about it. Were we to watch it at some point, I would be interested. And I feel like it's going to either be really good or really bad and nothing in between.
Yeah. And then we go up to 2018 S-Pop, Spop, whatever. And then we also have the live action coming out that we all have opinions about.
We've talked about this the other day. I have yet to see a live action adaptation of something that needed to happen. And I'm not saying that to be, like, pretentious. Like, I truly believe maybe it could be good. The problem is, like, you said it best. Like, I think animation opens a lot of doors for what you can do with a story, and, like, limiting it with live action people has never really done it any services.
Something about the Code Lyoko live action, I want to watch it eventually. Just seems, like, promising.
I guess the goal could be make it so bad it's still fun to watch, right?
Yeah. Any hoozles. So today we're talking about Masters of the Universe Revelation. And I think you and I have both talked about what this revelation could be. While many, including myself, may interpret it as Teela learning that Adam is actually He-Man, what did you think the revelation was, Brian?
The revelation is the friends we make along the way.
And you know what? I think that's more poetic. So where do you think is a good place to start our conversation?
All right, I'm going to throw you right on the bus. She has, like, she has a printed list. There's, like, a small docket of things we're going to talk about because we planned, like, a little bit ahead. And she just, like, glares at me angrily as she says that and points at the top of the list, like, cueing me in.
All right, Brian, say with your own free will what we'll be talking about first.
Why don't we talk about the animation unscripted?
Oh, I'm so glad you wanted to talk about that. Completely your idea. I probably would have picked something else.
Unbelievable.
So I'll say my 2 cents first, because I guess that's the route we're going today. I'm a bitch. I'll own up to it. I really like that intro scene where they're doing that whole, like, once upon a time, and it's, like, showing everything kind of, like, still frame-ish. And I also think from then on, the animation does have a slight tinge of basicness, but not in a way that makes me feel like it draws away from any creativity that's in the universe.
I would agree. I would say my first little note here is very much that it's safe. The animation they use is safe. So it's good. It's not great. And, like, that's fine. Like, there's a lot of shows that do that, many of which are super worth watching and can be great shows. I just felt like they played it a little close to the chest. It's a good art style, but it kind of falls into that thing we talk about. Our complaint with all, like, newer anime is there's, like, a little bit of a bright color palette. The lines are really clean. There's no real way to differentiate it from what are probably a number of other modern cartoons.
There was a time where every single thing that came out that was animated, for the most part, looked pretty different. Of course, you had, like, in the 90s, there was that DC style where, like, everything kind of looked like Batman the Animated Series. But I feel like it's been happening so aggressively lately.
Sometimes something that's, like, I don't want to say the term uglier. I'm just going to say it for lack of a better alternative. Sometimes, like, an animation style that is, like, maybe less clean is still something that's nice and can contribute to the piece. In this case, I mean, it's He-Man. Like, also, like, the original cartoon was very much a cartoon. So, like, I'm not going to fault them too much for that.
It fit the universe they built well.
It did. And I will say, as like a positive on that, I thought the fight sequences are really cool. I loved the animation that they used for any of the action that was going on. And that's where it shined the most to me. Any of the combat interactions, all I'm thinking of is when Orko is fighting, what was Skeletor when he was not Skeletor?
Was that even Skeletor?
It's, like, implied
let's call him the Bone Man.
The other Bone Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't like that word.
No, it's too late.
Okay.
He was the Bone Man.
Okay.
But yeah, when Orko's fighting them off and they have, like, the big old, like, power rings and, like, when you shoot a magical beam at someone and they shoot their magical beam at you.
Oh, I love that trope.
Yeah.
And their beams fought. The Bone Man fought with his beam.
Yeah, he beamed Orko.
Come on, man.
I'm sorry.
Really do think that, like you said, the animation was safe but effective. I will say there were times I feel like the animation was taking itself a smidgen too seriously, considering the fact that they had to keep all of the old names. oh, it's Stinkor. And I'm like, you can't act like Stinkor is some big baddie.
And it's like this like raw human-sized buff skunk. They had some fun names.
I'm pretty sure the Stinkor doll, when it first came out, actually smelt.
Yeah, didn't like it have like an issue where like it was like repulsive almost?
I don't think it was an issue. I think it was intended.
Yeah.
That's wild. Anywho, which I guess can lead us to, I don't know, Brian, what are you thinking for our second point? I don't know.
Wow, let me utilize my free will and options to move to the next topic that's not written out for us, Shannon. The character writing, I guess, would be the best way to sum it all up, right? Like anything to do with the individual character aspects, how they were developed, how they were written in.
That's a really good idea, Brian. I'm glad you came up with that. I guess we have to start off with Tila, which is where I want to begin my prickly, I don't know, I'm gonna try to be cautious about this.
I feel like we should preface and let everyone know that we like the show a lot.
Oh, I love it. Like, I watched it, you and I both watched it separately, like, to do this the second time. So, like, we've both watched it twice now.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, more so the second time than even the first. But I do have some critiques. And I'm saying this, it's a pickly thing. Here's the pickly thing. I very much like Tila, but I feel like there has come a point where anything that's meant to focus on gender, especially when it's like comes to what's deemed socially progressive, I'm kind of watching it already more worried about what some of the reactions will be. The one or two throwaway lines that are meant to like imply girl power, I'm focusing already on like, knew they were gonna ruin it, which like,
4 female Ghostbusters.
but here's the thing, at the same time, I think the problem too is that sometimes when you're trying to write a character as empowering through gender, it sometimes gets boiled down to this shallow girl power thing. And it just feels like I'd rather that energy be put towards writing very solid female characters, which a lot of shows and a lot of movies do.
Marvel fans, I'm coming after you.
Oh no.
They had the whole scene. Did you watch the last one that came out, like the very last one in that where they killed the guy, the purple. They killed Grimace.
That doesn't sound like a McDonald's friendly name.
I mean, yeah, but it was like the 40s or something.
The 40s?
I mean, maybe not. Are you gonna make me Google when Grimace came out? Because I'll do it.
Yeah, do it. I want to know.
All right, hold on.
I love him.
This is really circular, but I promise we're getting back to a point. I don't know why I just thought if I typed in Grimace, they would know what I was talking about.
God. Oh, wow. His
McDonald Land, 1971. Okay, so I was...
Oh, come
was the way.
on.
I just knew it was like from that like mid 20th century.
Oh, don't
marketing.
push it. You didn't know.
All right, you're right. I'm sorry.
Anyway.
They have the whole scene like in the last one where they line up the any of the woman heroines.
Yeah.
And like they kind of like a shot. And it's just funny because like, you know, Disney and Marvel proven time and time again to treat women like shit. It's like you click a stamp on the piece of paper instead of putting the actual legwork
It's
in.
performative.
It's a little performative.
Yes.
I wouldn't throw He-Man or this particular show under that bus.
Oh no.
But it's where you're coming from.
That's why I was getting worried because like as we've been getting further into this was meant to be like once in a blue moon, it has that vibe, but it's definitely not doing that. And I think this also boils down to, once we're really getting off track, the fact that the promotion for the show may have been a bit misleading.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I didn't pay too much attention to it, but all I know is that one interview that the one, I don't know the full name, but the director, the main writer, Kevin something.
Kevin. Let's just call him Kevin. We're bros.
I'm gonna say Kevin. This guy Kevin. I remember like reading the article because it was in response to like his writing versus I think Spop, Princess of Power. And him saying like, well, they had a lot more freedom. We're working with He-Man. We're going to be so restricted. It's going to be more like the original. And it wasn't like at all. So it just seems weird to have talked about it that way.
The fact that they killed the person many people were excited to watch as a protagonist in a new light, it was kind of sucky. But like, it's not like I disliked her. Like I dislike some characters. I didn't dislike Tila.
Tila was kind of like, I would go back to the animation. It was like a safe writing of a character.
Yeah.
Right? The things you were upset about were like pretty reasonable. Like, the things she got over were, interesting. Okay. All right. Well, we're on the character interpretation section that wasn't predetermined for us by you. So please tell me. I'm curious.
Not to say that she didn't have a right to be like a little salty, like, oh no, my friend's identity was hidden from me, and now that he's gone, I feel like I could have prevented that maybe if I knew part of the truth. I get that. She might have been milking it. I mean, he died. I feel like that's atonement enough.
Listen, not to hit you with the quote, but Adam was all like, man, I died. And she's like, yeah, and then we all had to live with it. Probably started off being a little bit like, okay, she's just being mean to everyone, blah, blah, blah. But I think she did have a lot of right to be upset. And I think that as she explains it to people throughout the show, I'm even more so like, she raises a lot of fair points. Like, Adam can't just sacrifice himself as He-Man and then act like he didn't lie to his closest friend for his entire life. Which he did. Maybe for good reason, or like reasons he thought were good, but...
I'm also glad they're finally talking about that because there's nothing funnier than because I forget when I'm watching the 80s show. Like, I forget they don't know who he is because he looks the fucking same.
He's the same huge buff guy.
He just takes off his shirt and he's like slightly less like nasally and he's all like, I'm He-Man. I'm like, dude.
It's so funny. And like in this one, I loved his, like, are we allowed to talk about their design, I guess?
Yeah.
We're talking about the writing. His design and writing in this one, I think, is so nice. To be fair, I think the original He-Man also wasn't necessarily like toxic masculinity. He had like what would you call it? When they used to draw people way too sexy. The way his personality was itself wasn't anything crazy. He was just kind of like a guy, you know. And I really like this Adam a lot because he was a chill guy.
Oh, I liked him a lot.
Like a little twinkie guy.
I really like the original Adam. Every single interpretation of He-Man is in some way, shape, or form a little memey. And I would hate for it to go too far from that. I'm glad they kept some elements. This is probably the most softy vanilla he's been. Not in a bad way. Not all vanilla is bad. He has enough spice to him to keep it unique to this show specifically in the universe.
Even if it's like how he relates to the plot and being that twist of getting knocked off. I thought a lot of the show was a little on the nose, the writing, which we'll get to in a different later section if it happened to be come up by chance and not written down on your paper.
Can you shut up?
But as far as like specific character writing, I thought like one of the few times they just let it speak for itself was when you go to what's their version of heaven? It's
Stop asking me for specific details I didn't write down.
Sorry.
Wait, is it No, it's not pre.
It means like a pra sound. Like
is it Preternia?
Preternia. That sounds right.
Or is it Post-Ternia?
No, it's Preternia, which is funny because it is kind of more Post-Ternia.
Are we sure it's Preternia?
It's got to be Preternia.
Can we call it Post-Ternia?
Post-Ternia.
Wait, that sounds like Post-Hernia. Let's go to Preternia again.
After Adam gets a hernia and dies at the beginning of the series and goes to Preternia. And like the OG guy, the OG He-Man was like, oh yeah, and like Adam's the only one who chose his like regular normal guy form. And they don't really like expand on it or talk about it anymore, which I thought was really nice because it kind of makes you wonder what aspects of his character would like make him choose that. And it's like a nice little thought process, I think.
I wonder if he was like one of the only ones who balanced his life as like a human and a warrior. He also treasured being just like a son and a friend.
Right. Like He-Man's He-Man, but Adam's cool because he's Adam.
Yeah. Except his dad doesn't think so.
Oh god. Classic every like male aged like 14 to like 30 in the audience when his dad's like, oh, I don't approve. And we're like, oh no.
That's parental pride, Adam. Something I hope I can feel one day.
Anyway.
Any other characters you wanted to talk about? Because we've been hammering in on those two a lot.
Yeah.
They're the main guys.
Which Evil Lynn, who I feel the need to talk about.
Favorite character.
She's so hot.
Favorite character.
And deep.
For sure, when Shannon and I were watching this for the first time and she popped up, we were both like, oh, she's hot. Yeah. And then like afterwards, we were like, oh, okay, she's also like one of the best written characters.
You know how much I loved Evil Lynn in the 80s. I have an animation cell of Evil Lynn on my wall looking beautiful. It's gorgeous. There is nothing I wanted more that I didn't even know I needed than Evil Lynn having a redemption and mostly relating to Orko.
Nothing's ever going to beat that classic, like, forced to work together under dire circumstances leading to actual progress and growth. Like, it's just such a good little trope that's like used so well. And I was a big fan of Evil Lynn for most of the show. I think it was one of the biggest driving points for me.
Because she never also stopped being like a bit cold and rude. As time went on, you could tell she was starting to soften up. I don't think she actually betrayed her to them.
I do think that by the time we get to the show's end, we will see more of a morally ambiguous again, or maybe even like a good Evil Lynn. A good Lynn.
A good Lynn?
A good Lynn.
Evil Lynn has a better ring to it.
I love how like various people in the show just called her Lynn. Or like when Skeletor pops back up and he's like,
you did good, Lynny.
God, it's so classic. I also like that she like talked about the fact that she put the evil in Evil Lynn. So I like thinking about like an edgy teenager being like, call me Evil Lynn.
But it was cool too, like seeing it's kind of like the same thing that happened I think with Harley Quinn a little bit too in some recent adaptations where like they actually talk about her relationship to Skeletor.
Yeah.
And like her being like, yeah, like I was like just kind of manipulated and used.
Yeah.
Which like to be fair, like the 80s cartoon wasn't thinking to any deep level at all about that, but like it's like a good way to kind of break the character out of its old shell.
Yeah, Skeletor would like occasionally just be like, shut up, woman, and I like loved him for it. And it's bad. God. No, Brian.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There are some media where I sit down and watch it and just forget everything I stand for. And original He-Man's one, he will literally be like, oh, a female. And I'm like, yeah, what does she think she's
Jesus Christ. You're just like, you're one of Skeletor's many, like...
I'm a pick-me for Skeletor, and I always will be.
Amazing.
Anyway.
The rest of the supporting cast was a little lackluster.
Hear me out.
Okay, I'm ready.
I think they aren't using Andra well enough. I like her character. I think she has like a unique personality. I think it could be used well. And I think she's good because she's like the only person in that group who has like an outside perspective from everything that went on back in like ye old times.
Right.
Which I think is necessary because it kind of like a reality check to all of them. But I also feel like you already have so many characters. It's kind of annoying to bring in someone really cool who I want to learn more about. And then they're just kind of there.
And like, you want to know like what drives a character. Like, again, like we talked about the 3 we looked at already. Obviously, Tila has all the anger and resentment towards those who kind of deceived her before, turning into a fear of her duty, turning into a duty.
God, sorry.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, Adam has his whole, like, you know, trying to redeem himself, and he has his friend. Also, like, that, like, we talked about the whole concept of, like, being more of Adam than he was He-Man, like, kind of that divisive line. And even Evil Lyn was, like, just, like, a great example of all these characters who had, you know what drove them, and you know what they were, like, reacting to and about. I think Andra had that one line early on saying, like, hey, I know that you don't want to do the hero thing, but, like, I want to leave an impact.
Yeah.
And then she didn't. The writer's fault. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give her some, like, interactions with some people that are, like, more than just, oh, I'm about that. Oh, I'm not as much about that.
Because I feel like normally someone with that mindset is normally the protagonist. The protagonist is, like, the fresh go-get-em, like, I want to be a hero. And then they usually have, like, a jaded friend or, like, you don't want to know the shit I've been through.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see it reversed like that. So I do hope to see more of her. Also, Roboto, was that his name or was it Mr. Roboto?
No, I think his name was Roboto,
song?
but you're thinking of the song Mr. Roboto.
By Styx or Kansas?
Was it either of them? That doesn't sound right.
Or was it a secret third option?
I'm looking it up.
Nice.
Dennis DeYoung of the... Oh, Styx! No, there you go.
Yeah, fuck you. I know my Styx. Got him. Any hoozles. I like... Was it Roboto? Roboto. I like Roboto. I think he didn't need to be in the plot more. I think he was in the perfect amount.
It's tough, because, like, the 2 scenes they use for, like, drawing out that dramatic death were Orko and him. Orko had some build up. It was kind of, like, done right before, but, like, Mr. Roboto was kind of like, oh, and the scene he's in is sad. And I'm like, oh, like, it's good scene writing, but, like, I didn't really know if his character earned it.
They're really going for a sped up pace. As it was happening, I kept thinking I was as sad as I possibly could be, and then he kept saying more.
Tila, please tell Father he was more successful at making me than he knew. If I was but a mere machine, I would never be afraid to die.
Dying. Where did he go? He died in heaven. He died in post-Turnia.
So is there like a post-Turnia?
He went to Robot Turnia. I don't want to, like, hem and haw on Adam too much, because, like, I didn't realize how much I kind of enjoyed his character until right now.
Yeah.
But when he chooses to go back and, like, give up immortality in Paternia is, like, a very cool little thing.
I mean, like, I kind of get it, though. It didn't seem like there was a lot happening there. Like, sure, the gardens were cool and lush, but, like...
Where's your Xbox?
Yeah, where's your Xbox? I've always had a soft spot for Man-at-Arms. One, because he looks like our father.
He does.
He looks exactly... Like, if you put our dad into cartoon form, that is Man-at-Arms from the 80s cartoon.
Yeah.
But it felt very like he served the purpose he was supposed to serve. Skeletor, I think, is a big character we have to talk about, because this is the first time I think Skeletor hasn't been the highlight of something He-Man.
And he's definitely, like... He's clearly, quote-unquote, the antagonist of the series.
Yeah.
But, like, he was completely absent from these episodes for the most part.
Yeah.
Stands at the very beginning, the very end, which is interesting.
This, I don't think, is a fault of a show, but more the fault of me as a viewer. I think the show did a great job making him slightly more actually evil than he used to be. But at the same time, I kind of like when he's a bit more of a meme.
Oh, yeah. Like, you want him, like, laughing evilly after some plan went wrong and horribly, making a pun and then running away. Like,
yes.
That's what you want. This Skeletor did have, like, lines that were funny, but his actions were very dark. Yeah. Like, I'm just thinking of when he got stabbed by, like, the sword. He, like, holds it through him to, like, lock into the key.
Those are all.
I'm like, that's pretty badass, Skeletor.
Isn't it Mark Hamill?
It is.
Oh, Mark Hamill.
I love Mark
Did you know
Hamill.
They got the voice of the original Skeletor?
That's actually really fun.
He voices Moss Man in the new series, who dies.
Like, he gets burnt to a crisp, but then, well, he's in Paternia now.
Oh, yeah.
He shows up in Paternia.
Okay, here's the thing. I feel like, are the deaths going to have meaning if they all end up in magical fairy heaven?
Well, not everyone gets to go to Paternia. That's what the Moss Man goes like, yeah, like, you as He-Man get to. Everyone else dies and goes into the dirt.
Then why was he there?
Because he's Moss Man.
Whatever.
Who knows where Mr. Roboto is?
I want him to go to pre-Turnia, which is actually post-Turnia.
Post-Turnia. Skeletor rules, and his, like, Mark Hamill.
Yeah. I've never seen Mark Hamill do a bad job, honestly.
Yeah. I would have liked to have seen him ham it up a little more, but, like, it wouldn't have fit the tone that Skeletor was in the show.
Hamill it up?
Hamill it up.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I feel like he's a very reliable voice actor.
Oh, yeah.
I know that Tila was voiced by the person who plays Daphne in the live action Scooby-Doo's.
Interesting.
I usually know all the voice actors, but I was like kind of running dry this time. I think Chris Wood. He did a good job.
Oh, look, he did both He-Man and Adam.
Shut the fuck up.
Because He-Man sounds really different than Adam. So I'm saying, like, it would have been, to me, like, it would have made sense if there was, like, a separate listing for voice actor of someone who just had, like, a deeper voice or something.
Wait. I also know that Evelyn is voiced by the conductor in Infinity Train, who, at this point, now that she's done 2 for 2, she's the voice of MILFs.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can't escape that. The guy who played the Beast Dude did a great job of, like, a lot of snarling and grunting.
Beastman?
Yeah, Beastman.
Kevin Michael Richardson. Brian, that man is in everything. Him, Mark Hamill, and Ron Perlman have the 3 sexiest DILF voices known to man. I stand by that. Pacing, I think we kind of already touched on.
Pacing, if we're just talking about it in, like a 2-sentence kind of summary, was good for the most part. I very much think they did a good job setting up the call to adventure, then the different trials that Tila and crew go through. My biggest concern is going to be for, like, since this was technically, like, the first half of a season, I guess, or something, like, where they're going to go from here, whether or not they're going to keep up the kind of higher pace that they've built, or if they're going to slow down a bit.
Even though I think it was objectively fast-paced, I enjoyed watching it all in one sitting. I felt like an elongated movie. So I guess it's a matter of whether or not you're watching something like that weekly versus all in one sitting.
Yeah. I will say, like, if I could have given them more episodes to spread it out and build it up a little more, I think I would have liked that.
Okay.
But not, like you said, it still worked for what it was.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us to, like, the general writing, how we felt the plot was, especially given the fact that this is a universe that already exists and they have to work within it.
Right. I am very new to the He-Man canon. Like, we talked about Spot, but that's like a different... Even comparing the new She-Ra to the old She-Ra is, like, entirely apples and oranges. So, like, I didn't know anything about the characters, the universe, like, any of that jazz. This made it very clear. Like, it kind of, like, was a cool thing that certain stories with decent writing or good writing will do, where, like, not only are you following the adventure, but it's also bringing you around the world that they built, and it's like, oh, you know, here's how Preternia works, here's our version of Hell, here's how these things are connected, like, what is driving the plot forward. I think a lot of times people will do crazy plots or twists to, like, just do crazy plots and twists, and that's annoying. I don't feel that way about how they killed Adam in this one. It created a new opportunity for a very fun story. And it seems like, you know, he's back anyway, so they kind of, like, undid the edginess of it. There
are times when bringing back dead characters feels cheap. And in this case, I feel like the second he died, we kind of knew it wasn't going to be forever, so it didn't feel as cheap.
Right.
Anyhow.
No, it definitely was earned. I mean, like, they had to go through a whole long, crazy adventure to get there in the first place. And, like, he has to sacrifice a lot to come back. So it all feels pretty...
earned.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if it's not, like, super deep, I feel like they at least gave up something for everything they took, like, or trying to capitalize off of.
Did you have any, like, major criticisms about the writing of the show?
I think mainly is that sometimes it felt a bit too angsty. I know that's the thing they were going for, and that's just a personal preference of mine. I don't love too much angst. But it wasn't anything distracting. Overall, I wanted more of other stuff, which I guess then would go into, like, wishing they had more episodes than... Because I feel like nothing they have felt improperly paced, but I wish there was more in there to support it or explore. What about you?
I wish that they had done... I felt like a lot of times some of the major plot points were kind of presenting a conversation where two people disagree or, like, are at ends. Resolve it between the two of them, and then have a quick callback to it, instead of, like, more heartfelt conversations. But again, I don't want to throw this entirely under that bus, because I think they do have those nice conversations. Orko and Evil Lyn, when they get to Preternia, and again, Tila talks to Adam, and then another of other conversations that happen between characters in the show. It does do a lot of that really well. My problem is that a lot of times they'll do it once, resolve the issue, and then, like, kind of move on.
Yeah.
So again, that's what really, to me, like, with Orko and Roboto, felt kind of, not cheap, just a little fast. It seemed very much like they kind of built up their characters only to kill them right away.
That's true. It did, like, at this point, I feel like there are certain people with more death flags than others, but I guess that's just life. I will say, I did enjoy some of the quips, like when Tila and Evil Lyn were talking on the boat and she's all like, oh, save your lecture, I've found peace. And then Evil Lyn just goes, said the warrior en route to hell. And I was just like, read her receipts, Evil Lyn.
I mean, Evil Lyn's allowed to be mean to everybody.
That's her
funny.
thing.
She's allowed. She took her helmet off and was, you know, just had, like, that.
She was hot.
Yeah.
She was so hot.
Yeah.
Anywho, the pacing was, general writing, pretty good. If you take the individual elements of the show, they don't seem that great, but for some odd reason, as a whole, I was really enjoying it.
Anything better than this would be great. This is, like, to me, a good standard to hold any average show up to. It was really good. I think a couple of moments really got to me. it doesn't do anything like perfectly or great. There's like definitely a few other shows I would still definitely put kind of in the tiers above it. At the same time, like, that's by no means any way to say that this is a bad show. It was really fun. It was really enjoyable.
I feel like most people have a pretty nuanced opinion on the show, but it does surprise me to still see the show is getting more criticism than praise, which does surprise me because I feel like it's still hitting the same notes that every other, like, that the original show is hitting. Like, I feel like it has that same energy still. It's just different, but not in like a way that I thought would have garnered much criticism.
Yeah, I guess I really can't put myself in the mindset of someone. I mean, maybe there's like people who have like specific criticisms just about general plot writing and character writing and stuff, and like I'd have to hear their arguments. For anyone who's like upset about its relation to the original show, the original He-Man was a kid's cartoon from the 80s that was important and good, but also, like, if you watch it, is a children's cartoon from the 80s. It was kind of a campy, don't let strangers into your home, kids.
Yeah.
You know, and like, again, it was fine and good. Like, I'm not criticizing that as like a medium or a concept, but if that's why you're upset, is that this show isn't that, I just don't know. I can't put myself in that realm of understanding.
And maybe it's that whole like mindset of things are changing from when I was a kid. It's the same reason I feel like Teen Titans Go gets a lot of hate. Most, like, I remember, even though people are kind of cool with Korra now, when Korra first came out, people did not like it. There's immediate hatred for a while, and then like a few years pass, and then people just kind of like it, and people who didn't like it kind of just forget about it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the natural way of things. Also, this isn't even as hated as.
Well, I was gonna say, like, how has the general reception been? Because, like, to me, like, I haven't heard much about it, and maybe it's because I haven't really put myself into like near the fandom or anything like that. Yeah. But
I was surprised because a few different like videos or like posts about it, in comparison to everything around it, it had far more dislikes than likes. Far more.
Interesting.
And I was surprised because I genuinely thought after it came out that people would like it. I don't know. If anyone does know, I am just genuinely curious. Like, even with Teen Titans, even though I don't agree with it, I can see the mindset of people who dislike it. Same with Korra. Like, I see where their mind was going. With this, I really don't. And that, I think, brings us to our last point very swiftly, which is, how does the show function in the Masters of the Universe? This universe needed something like this. If we're going into something that's going to have a lot of shows and a lot of interpretations, which is good, some universes have enough content to push out a bunch of that. And it's funny because like this all just started with toys, and now there's so many shows and movies and versions of it, which is great. I think the fact that we had so far mostly silly things, and then now we have something a little bit more serious and focusing on battle and the darker side of the universe. People might actually die and stay dead, which I think it's cool because this way now you can kind of have something for everyone. If you're interested in the medium, but you want something more lighthearted, you want something goofy, or you want something with Courtney Cox, there's something for everyone. Yeah.
I definitely think that that's a good point between Spop and this that covers like a lot of bases. I was so nervous when this came out, and it seemed like the one interview had almost like an antagonistic view of She-Ra. I was worried this was going to be only gritty and dark, but it wasn't. It was just different in like a really good way. Different things.
Yeah. I am excited for the next part of the season, and overall, I have pretty good things to say about it. No complaints, other than the complaints we listed.
My one complaint is that Evelyn will only exist in the fictional realm.